When do I give up? When do I stop praying? When do I quit? It's a question I got recently, and it's one I've received many times over the years. Let's just talk about this question in the context of biblical hope in Scripture. What do we know about God? We know that He is not a man who lies. He is not a man who changes his mind. He doesn't give us a desire to tease us. He actually gives us a desire because He wants to fulfill it. What He declares actually becomes a promise that you and I get to cling to. And so if we look at Scripture and we look at what does Scripture say on the topic of giving up and stopping? Well, Scripture says in Galatians 6:9 that in due time you will reap a harvest if you do not grow weary in well-doing. It also says if you don't grow weary or what? Quit. If you don't grow weary and what? Give up. So what Scripture says is actually, hey, don't give up. Keep going. You know, we think about, let's talk about in Joshua, the Israelites, they're marching around the walls. And can you imagine had they stopped marching that final lap, what would have not happened? Those walls wouldn't have come down. Or you think about Abraham and Sarah, who waited all those years, who contended for the promise, who contended for life and the womb. Can you imagine if they had given up? You and I would not be here because we are the legacy from their faith, from their contending, from their perseverance. We live in this microwave society and we think if we have not yet seen it, then we must have heard it wrong. Well, in the context of babies, what do we know? We know that babies are God's idea, that they were His plan. His original mandate for us was Genesis 1:28. Be fruitful and what? Multiply. It was God's idea. And then we think of verses like Psalm 113:9. He makes the barren woman a joyful mother of children. We see that every woman who went through infertility in Scripture, went on to have children. And so this question, when do I give up? Well, let me ask you, if you had a child running a race and they were running along and they were on their final lap, what would you encourage them to do? Would you encourage them to finish the race, or would you tell them it's time to quit? See, that's not the Father that I know personally, and it's probably not the God who is in your life either. His plan is to fulfill every one of His desires that He's put in your heart. So are you someone who sought Him in this desire? If your answer is yes, He desires to fulfill it. He actually invites you to partner up with Him in the process, because we know that His will does not automatically happen. If you look at people's lives and you're like, well, I know so-and-so and they never had the child. Well, I just want to encourage you that it's never God's fault when we don't see His plan and His will realized here on earth. If you think about it, Scripture talks about in 2 Peter, I believe it's 1:9, but I could be getting that reference wrong. It says, none shall perish, mean none shall go to hell. Or excuse me, none shall go to hell. Well, that's the Father's heart. But what happens is there's people who perish and there's people who go to hell. Why? Because He has given us free will. So what about you? Maybe you've already quit. Maybe you're thinking about quitting. If you've already quit, I just want to tell you that's between you and the Lord. It's not for me to say whether you should or should not quit. However, when I read Scripture, it's not what I find in Scripture. What it says in here is keep the faith. Keep persevering, keep pressing in, keep running the race, keep believing, keep contending. That's what we see. It might take hundreds of years. It might take a lot longer than what you thought, but that is the Father's heart, is to keep running the race after Him. I would rather be a woman who perseveres and contends the next 50 years of my life and not see the promise come to pass than live a life of regret, knowing that if I quit, I might miss out on all that God has for me. So that's my encouragement for you. That's Caroline's opinion. Again, what you decide is ultimately between you and the Lord. And I believe He will direct your steps as you seek Him and as you put Him first. He'll give you wisdom in making those decisions, and He'll give you Scripture to help back up the decision that is best for you. Be blessed. Have a great day. See y'all later.